For most of the 2020s, the Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns occupied opposite ends of the AFC North competitive landscape. On one side were the Ravens, perennial contenders, talented, consistent, and seemingly always one step away from another deep playoff run. On the other side, the Browns, talented on paper, inconsistent on the field, and often unable to match the strength of their division rivals. But numbers, predictions, and long-term trajectories mean nothing when Baltimore faces Cleveland. Every battle in the AFC North is a street fight disguised as a football game, and that's precisely why the Ravens' struggle to beat the Browns in 2 games became such an unexpected story. Despite superior rosters, greater coaching stability, and years of higher expectations, Baltimore went 4 full seasons without defeating the Browns twice in the same year. Something always went wrong: a major injury, a crucial mistake, or simply one of those strange energies of divisional games that can destabilize even the best teams. Even in 2023, when the Ravens finished with a 13-4 record and seemed virtually unbeatable, Cleveland found a way to spoil the sweep. Baltimore dominated the game in Cleveland, only to lose a close and painful game at home weeks later. This became a pattern, a frustration, and eventually an issue that fans couldn't ignore. Therefore, the expectation for this season's Week 11 rematch was different. The Ravens had already won in Week 2, but fans knew all too well that beating the Browns once guaranteed nothing. The curse was real, the rivalry was fierce, and the pressure was quietly mounting. And that pressure led directly to one of the most important games of Baltimore's season. Which brings us to topic 2, how the Ravens rebuilt themselves at the exact moment they needed stability the most. What makes the Ravens' sweep even more significant is the timing of when it happened. It wasn't a dominant season from start to finish like Baltimore had last year. This was a season of survival, marked by injuries, inconsistency, tough losses, and a defense that struggled to find its identity in the early weeks. When the mid-season break arrived, the Ravens weren't just looking for rest, they needed to remember who they were. The injury list was extensive, the defense's performance was erratic, and opponents were finding ways to exploit weaknesses that didn't exist the previous year. Then, something made sense. After the bye week, the Ravens began to rebuild what defines great teams: habit. 3 consecutive wins reignited their rhythm, restored the defense's confidence, and rebuilt the internal identity that had been lost. They didn't massacre their opponents. They survived them. They won with grit, timing, and situational play. This made the Week 11 matchup against the Browns both a test and an opportunity. A victory would bring the Ravens back to a 50% winning record, with 5 wins and 5 losses, and keep them firmly alive in the division race. But it would also give them the chance to bury a ghost that has haunted the franchise for years. Baltimore took the field knowing they wouldn't have an easy time. The Browns, regardless of standings or injuries, always show up with grit in these classics, and this week was no exception. And that brings us to the moment when everything finally came down to earth. The game that ended the curse. The game that broke the curse. The Ravens' 23-16 victory wasn't a masterpiece. It wasn't beautiful or perfect, but it was hard-fought, dramatic, and full of those moments that define American football rivalry. Cleveland's defensive star, Myles Garrett, delivered one of the most dominant defensive performances by a single player this season. 4 sacks, constant pressure, and numerous plays where he practically single-handedly changed the course of the game. But this was the night the Ravens refused to give up. Lamar Jackson battled difficult field positions, relentless pressure, and an unforgiving defense to score crucial touchdowns when Baltimore needed them most. Even when the rhythm of the game was broken, Lamar found a way to react. This resilience is what set this game apart from the painful losses of previous years. Then came the unexpected star, Mark Andrews. The veteran tight end not only made a historic reception, but also scored the first rushing touchdown of his career. giving Baltimore a boost of energy just when the offense needed it most. The Ravens. They didn't dominate, they resisted. They managed the chaos, controlled the clock, and protected their lead long enough to cross the finish line with a result that fans had been hoping to celebrate for 4 long years. For the first time since 2020, Baltimore has beaten the Cleveland Browns in both games. Record: Ravens 5-5, Browns 2-8. Confidence restored. Rivalry curse broken. With this obstacle finally overcome, the Ravens now enter the second half of the season with something they didn't have before: momentum. Ravens flock, now that Baltimore has finally broken the curse and swept the Browns for the first time since 2020. Do you believe this victory could be the turning point of the season? Comment below what you think. And don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and leave that like. That helps the channel a lot.